Welcome, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We had a few technical difficulties. The technical side of things is a little bit challenging sometimes, but we work our way through it. And we welcome you to our channel, the Light Body Live, where we're presenting a framework, a progression, a logarithmic progression for development. It's reliable, it's consistent, and at the same time, it gives tools to unfold the individual or the personalized version of development that each person discovers within himself. It also provides ideas for improvisation and creativity within the process. And all those things together, synthesized, I think what makes a fulfilling and liberating and powerful ability to change ourselves, to enlighten ourselves. The last time we did a live stream, we did a process resetting the vagus nerve, and a lot of people enjoyed that. We got a lot of feedback about it, and it seems like a lot of people used that since last week. It was only a week ago. And it's a really powerful tool that you can use just by itself at any time of the day, because it's not only relaxing, but relaxing is a result of the parasympathetic vagus innervation, which triggers all the regenerative functions of the body. So it's a really good tool to use intermittently during the day. And as I was saying, it's a good example of how when we do light body processes, whether it's very simple, expanding and contracting the outer body, or using balancing of the chakras, suddenly we get the urge, or we're drawn to something like a more physical interaction with the vagus nerve or the nervous system, with the breath, and we have that possibility. We're not locked in to an absolute system, but we have flexibility. The system is constantly recreating itself, and as I mentioned last week, it's liquid. It's like the coming together of a multidimensional puzzle. So hopefully you enjoyed that and continue to give us some feedback about what kind of effects that you experienced with it. We had a couple come in, and we're going to post a few of those. A little break for a mic adjustment here. And anyway, I just wanted to recap what we were doing last week and some of the thoughts I had about it, and encourage you to let us know what what you experienced with it. That's always very helpful, not only for me and Lynn, but also for our whole community of people that tune in and are working with these different components and processes. So today I wanted to talk about something that's also in a lot of minds, and I phrased the title maybe a little bit negative. Does the world get you down? And there's a lot of challenging things, as we know, in today's environment. The environment itself, water quality, soil quality, air quality. And I would guess that almost everyone, if not everyone, that does this light body work has an empathy and a desire to have those things be at the highest quality, because we know that's what really, on a day-to-day basis, remakes our system, remakes our body. And as we've been talking about in the past, our body becomes a nucleus of a larger cell that's forming, and that's the prerequisite to the light body and the light body vehicle. So it's always this progression, this building block, this coming together of different components and elements of different levels, this multidimensional puzzle where pieces coming together on the emotional, on the energetic, on the physical, and then becoming galvanized as one. And when that happens, an alignment takes place, and it creates more energy, and it creates more force. And we learn how to regulate that force and that power for creation. So what can we do? We can go out and protest. We can write to our local authorities, and I wouldn't discourage anyone from doing that. Surely it has some impact. And we could compare the use of time to the equivalent of impact. And I think that when we work with our energy system as the core element of creating transformation and change and giving input to the creation of what we would like to have become our social dynamic, our environmental dynamic, we can see what do we gain the most leverage from. Is it having a sign and marching around? And I'm not ridiculing that. It's important. It takes bravery, it takes courage, and standing up, speaking directly. Although when we speak against something, oftentimes we're empowering that we're speaking against, and we have to realize a lot of times also what we're against, in some ways we become. Now that may be a little bit abstract, but worth considering. And take a deeper dive into how that dynamic can work. So within this light body information unfolding, the core level, the primal level of transformation, of paradigm shift, is to align energy, is to bring energy into alignment. And then that alignment takes place. Then, as I mentioned before, it provides leverage for transformation and change, so-called change. And this is really in essence, the main thing that we need to do. It's the most powerful thing that we need to do. Now, I'm saying that, and in the end, you need to decide for yourself, to go within yourself and decide really what is the important and the most productive way to go about, how you like to input, how you like to respond to the things that are challenging, to the things that are presenting themselves. Challenge always gives us the possibility of change and development and growth. And that's the first reaction that I like to have, even if I resist it or even if it's painful sometimes. So these alignment tools that we've been talking about in the live streams and in our courses and in our blog podcast, they're revolving around the chakra tools, the outer body regulation, the kundalini balancing, and the operation of these things synthesized with what becomes this vehicle, this light body vehicle. So we can move forward and backwards, so we can create a present time continuum instead of like a linear timeline of past and future. Now we can add to that, and certainly very valuable within that possibility of changing. We can add to that what we're doing on the individual level, within ourself, within our individual personal life. And I'd like to talk about that in two different ways. One is, well, in other words, to resolve the friction that we have personally in our life. This can keep us in what we could say is in a misaligned, unaligned state. And working with that to bring those things into alignment can contribute to this idea of, or this movement to alignment that I'm talking about. So there's different kinds of friction, and we can work to resolve that, and we do in different ways. Now, one is when we work with friction or the stress mechanism. That is something that has formed in the past. It's a mechanism. It has a physiological reality to it in the nervous system and in the soft tissue system. I've talked about that at length in past courses and past Light Body Live sessions, so I won't go too much into it. But the fascia has a memory, the soft tissue has a memory, and in order to facilitate that memory, it holds our life force in the information of the stress. And that becomes over and over again the way that we filter, the way that we perceive. So it keeps us in stress. And together with that, when we go over the story, either in our mind or talking with someone else, we may think that, okay, we're resolving the story by identifying it, but at a subliminal somatic level, oftentimes we're recreating that stress. We're reinforcing that memory. So the idea is we want to dissolve the force of the story. And in some ways, we don't really have to go that much into it, and we really want to recognize that no matter how difficult the story is or was, that we have to let it go. We have to let the power of that story dissolve. And as we do, it encourages this energetic alignment to take place, which is energetic, but also starts to manifest physically in our structure, in our organs, and in our tissue system. Now, the second kind of individual alignment, well, before I do that, I just want to say, physically, this can come from this kind of misalignment or unalignment from physical stress, accident trauma, whether it's a sudden impact or a gradual impact over time. Emotional type of stress, that would be related to like depression or anger that we have that's unexpressed, and things like psychological stress that's coming from our belief system that doesn't really match our subconscious reality, our soul path. And we're constantly wrestling with the beliefs and the conditioning that we have versus what's really trying to emerge deep from within our being, from the soul that has manifested within our physical life, our physical, emotional, mental life. Okay, so going on, and I could speak for hours about just that, and we have in the past, but from evolution, there are changes that are wanting to take place that also due to conditioning, due to physical and emotional condition, stress, compression, that they're unable to unfold. So there are natural evolutionary changes that are taking place, even at the level of chemistry, hormones, structure. Our structure is changing, our thought process, and ultimately, again, our paradigm, how we think and how we perceive. The structure and the reality of our brain is changing. It's trying to expand and emerge beyond the actual physical structural cranium. So we've talked about that and described how that works in past courses. So we just recognize that we can work on those things and identify them and find ways to adjust them. And that then feeds back into this level of the core adjustment that creates transformation, which is our energy body, which is the underlying structure, liquid structure of our whole physical world. When we change that, the world around us changes. And as that changes, we also may find on this individual level that we're very attached to things that actually cause the friction, cause the illness, cause the unhappiness, and yet we're attached to it, and yet we try to hold on to it. So this is another challenge that we identify, and we find ways to adjust and let go, and simultaneously and conversely, as we align the energy system, that allows us to identify and let go. So going on, like how we can really influence at the greatest level the world around us that sometimes is very concerning and sometimes is taking energy from us, worrying us. And how can we stay calm? And how can we stay serene? How can we enjoy the life around us while we proactively engage with these elements of the environment, the world, I'll use the P word, politics, etc., and influence that in a way that's more symbiotic, more enlightening, more globally communal, let's say. So moving on from that, and like I said, it's a long discussion. Then how do we work within the family to supplement this idea of energetic alignment? Because family is there. Family has an immense dynamic and force within our life system. And it has like a dynamic that moves together the different persons, siblings, parents, offspring, our children, our grandchildren, the partners of our children, who come with their whole family dynamic that then tries to synthesize and infuse with our family dynamic that we bring. So it's very complex. And I can say, we could talk about that also on and on, but that's our blood family. And when we realize and step back that the dynamic, the core essential of that dynamic of the family, the blood family, is healing. And if we look at different families and the scope of different families, similar elements, both what we would say is positive and negative, exist the whole spectrum within almost every family. And we can see it. There's addiction, there's agreement, there's disagreement, there's friction of different sorts. And it's this constant dynamic of trying to connect to one part of the family to prove rightness against the other part, and then resolving or not resolving, and how that goes on and on at events, dinners, holidays, etc. I think we all know what that experience is. We think that it's about going and having a good time, and it could be that. But ultimately, we notice that it's the challenge and it's the stimulation from the friction that we have to keep dealing with over and over again. Ultimately, as we raise the frequency and make alignment, the healing in the blood family is acceptance for how it is. Not judging, not expecting, not trying to change, because we start to notice that we can't really change. We can only change ourselves. And that's the most powerful way to change all that's around us. Now, how that change takes place, we also have to learn to recognize that for what it is, and that also leads us to a point of acceptance. We also learn that no matter what our differences is, no matter how deep those differences, frictions, the hurt in the family, that most of the time, and there's exceptions, that the course that works the best is to love our family. And sometimes if they've hurt us and injured us, it's not that easy to step back, to zoom out, and to embrace. However, that's where the family dynamic leads us when we do this with the underlying alignment that's taking place at this light body level, within the chakra system, the kundalini channels, and the outer body resonance, all the resonance of the whole system. So finally, it's teaching us what everything teaches us in the end, and that's letting go. Because transformation can't happen 100% unless we're letting go, so that the next iteration, the next manifestation can take place. Other than that, it's skewed, it's withheld, it's distorted. So we need to let it go. We also have what emerges, and sometimes we don't recognize that clearly, is our vibrational family. And we feel guilty about the fact that we meet friends that we seem to have more in common with. Our thoughts about things, our personal practice, our consciousness seems to align more with people that are not of the blood family. And as we continue with our development and our alignment at the energetic level, we realize that this is a vibrational, energetic family. And it starts to have as much importance because it's empowering. It's healing in a different way, through empowerment. The acceptance part, the non-expectational part is already built in to these type of relationships. So this is another part of the family. Now there's crossovers, and this is when we're really super grateful and super, fortunate when some members of the blood family are also part of our vibrational family, and doesn't make other parts of the blood family or vibrational family less. It's just that we celebrate that and realize what a gift it is. So the vibrational family has a coherence of consciousness. We realize that there's a collective, but there's also an individuality that operates at actually the same thing at the same time. We become like an individual node, but operating within the collective. And I'll talk about a little bit more about that in a few moments. So when we expand out in our vision and we zoom out, then we take a look at the fact that when we're aligning ourselves, even when we're quietly, almost invisibly, moving through the community, through the place, the supermarket, through the place where we buy clothes, get gasoline, walk through the community, that we're vibrating in a certain way. Now, sometimes people are confused by us. Sometimes people don't know what to make of us. Some people think, wow, they're strange, but they're harmless. Sometimes people are afraid of it. They have fear when they feel the vibration of higher frequencies because it's creating a challenge for them to go through all this process. And if they're deeply entrenched in their conditioning, then this is very difficult. Their emotional, psychological homeostasis shuts down and wants to preserve the way that they have always been and feel like they always will be. So we go to community and world, and we realize as this alignment takes place, that we're not judging so much anymore. We're not judging the leaders of the different governments, of the community. We can be aware of what they're doing. We can also be aware that they do not share our vision and our values. However, we're not judging them necessarily as right or wrong. They're acting out part of the whole consciousness, part of what we are also. So when we see someone doing or saying or acting in a way that we don't like, then we have to realize, well, if consciousness is one, then they're expressing something that's inside of me. So again, it circles back to the fact that our personal alignment is always the most powerful way to influence and also to change. So the real leverage and the real power behind making this kind of transformation, world transformation, global brain transformation, is to raise the frequency, which we do as we bring the light body into alignment. And this is the way, as they say in modern, idioms, the most bang for your buck. Your time spent for the most leverage to be had. And I can say when you let the world get you down, and you're letting it drain your energy. You're letting those leaders that you don't agree with, those policies that seem outrageous, draw your energy out. And so you're losing leverage. Your leverage is diminishing. And it's like non-renewable energy. It's just draining out. It's carbon thinking. And at the same time, when we raise the frequency, we're gaining energy. We're creating energy. This is more like oxygen, energy creation, renewable type of energy. So, along with this idea, we're an individual node, but within a collective, we have what we could say is decentralized spiritual development. So as the light body forms, we can interact with various kinds of spiritual ideas, even doctrines. However, we can always realize that we have the ability to develop our own path simultaneously or synthesize that. We're not totally just mindlessly agreeing, mindlessly saying yes, that this is a good practice, this is a good practice, this idea works, this idea works. But we're starting to understand that judge things through our experience of them as well. Not speaking conceptually, but speaking according to experience. And this leads me to another really wonderful idea, not idea, but reality of light body activation and alignment, and that is independent truth verification. So what we hear, what we see, we verify that independently through our own experience. Now that may align, going back to the first decentralized and the collective, we start to find that there are other nodes within that collective that seem to have a coherence or agreement at the higher frequency level. And we find also confirmations of that truth within things that we might read, things that we might see, but it could also be the opposite, that we see things in the media, we hear things, or we read things, and we see through our verification, no, this is not what I perceive as truth according to my experience. So we don't blindly just accept things as truth or not truth. We maintain the spirit of non-credo, and that means that we independently verify the truth and see if we find coherence with frequencies that we feel like we are aligned with. So, does the world get you down, or can you gather the power internally to move through this world and feel calm, serene, productive, engaged with family, engaged with creativity, engaged with community, without judgment, without trying to change someone else, but being committed to developing and aligning yourself. And then the things around you start to take care of themselves. And that's what I want to say today. I have a little process that I wanted to do it's one of my go-tos. And I think it's one of the baseline important processes. But first I'm going to see if there's any questions, or do we have time now? I kind of rambled on longer than I thought I would.
Not at all.
Okay. And if you have any questions now or comments about what I've said here, we would love to hear from you. And as Lynn has informed you, first of all, to participate in the chat, I think you have to subscribe. And that would be really helpful. And we'd love to hear where you are and if you want to tell us who you are, that's great too.
We had a question regarding light body activation and dreams from David Brown in North Carolina. He was asking if there's any crossover or connection between using our dream consciousness state to either affect the light body work or the light body work to affect that.
I think there's absolutely not only a connection, but they're intertwined. So we can also break dreams down into a few categories, and there are people for sure that are concentrating on this aspect and have much more information and experience to provide. However, I've delved into dreaming, and I dream. And what I wanted to say is that one category is random dreams, and things that don't necessarily, you can try to interpret them, and you can try to find the Freudian psychological aspect, and that can be useful. And sometimes, to me, it seems like it's useful, and sometimes it's really kind of a dead end, like a cul-de-sac where you go around in a circle. But also those kind of dreams can show your condition. So a lot of times water dreams, as an example, are showing the condition of the kidney and the bladder. Dreams where you have angst, anger, frustration, liver, gallbladder. So very basic interpretations according to Chinese medicine, the five-element theory. They can also show our condition then, like watery dreams, or where we're drowning, where it can show that the kidneys are affected. The kidneys are weak, the hormonal system is weak. What else did I put down here? They're showing our emotional state, like anger, or that we're depressed or fearful. And sometimes dreams are showing different kinds of frustration, relationship frustration, sexual frustration. So we can get meaning from that kind of random dream. Next type is lucid dreaming. These are dreams that seem more realistic. And a lot of times they are. It's like our daily life just continues when we're asleep. And we can add to that if we're disciplined with it. And there's different disciplines of how to engage with lucid dreaming, how to actually create lucid dreaming, where you can learn, where you can self-educate during the time that you're asleep. So I'll leave that up for your exploration. I've had these experiences, dreams that are really fantastic and realistic, and really, really fun, really enjoyable. The next type is where there's a fusion. There's no difference really between the dream, sleeping and awake, and this is more at the light body level. As we align and we vibrate in these frequencies, we actually need less sleep because all these practices activate parasympathetic nervous system, and they're regenerative. Like research has shown that for 15 minutes of deep meditation, well, the test persons were monks in the research that I read, and they found that 15 minutes of deep meditation equals 4 hours of sleep. So that's just interesting right there, and that's based on a lot of things, but particularly how it influences the nervous system. The other thing is you might notice that your appetite changes, what type of foods you're attracted to, and also to the volume of how much you want to eat. And the reason is that your breathing practices are helping you gather what's called prana. Or when you go out, you're more absorbing light, and light absorption leads to human photosynthesis, where we're taking in light and we're amplifying what happens in our body, where we change light into energy, into carbohydrate, and then metabolizing into energy. So the light body and dreams become one and the same thing. And then you start to realize that the real dream, the most powerful dream, is the one that we're actually experiencing when we're awake. The awake state is also a dream. And there we have great leverage and great input. So I would say that that would be a starting point for how we can look at and utilize what's happening with dreams.
Do you want another question?
Sure.
Anna Maria wrote an email asking this question. During embryonic stage in the mother's womb, energy enters through the U-points in the back, forms the organs, and exits through the bow points in the chest. How therapeutic can it be to recharge these points through the expansion and gathering of energy combined with the cranial rhythm and shallow breath? She's referring to the processes you introduced in the latest Light Body course.
I would say they're completely compatible, and it's a good example of how you can take the basic exercise or pattern or mechanism and then apply it in different ways. So you can have the energy come in through the U-points and process and express through the bow points. And you can experiment with that in both directions, or gathering front and back. But certainly the bow points and the U-points are very strong revitalization, balancing acupuncture points, and I think it's a great idea. Are there any more comments or questions? Come on, guys.
Tichelle on the live stream wrote, "It's getting easier and easier for me to gather internal power to not allow the world to get me down. just having the awareness that we have that power is priceless.
Great.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to type in or even feedback with the work you've been doing on your own.
And I'm very curious how you feel about what I've said here today.
And we have, just to let you know, so we have Zoe is here, Christine Nelson, Deborah Marcinis, Dawn is here, Herman, Tichelle, Anna Maria. Just thought I'd give you a few heads up of some of the people that are here.
So it's like the band's back together. The reunion tour.
Anybody on the live stream, if you want to help us out, if you could like the video, that would be great.
Yeah. We are finding it very interesting to interact with the technology and the platforms. Right now we're exclusively using the YouTube platform, and it has its own parameters of rules and regulations. And, you know, we might migrate to other platforms as well, so we'll keep you informed about that.
I could give some feedback that
Sure.
I've really been going through some accelerated change over the last few months, particularly. You know how there's time periods in your life where it's more like integrating things, and then there's like accelerated change or growth. And it really showed when first the live stream link wasn't working, and then I guess the mics, the new mics that we got weren't working.
Today?
Yeah, and so I didn't get flustered like I usually do, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, sometimes with the technology, Lynn kind of is like the person that puts the finger in the light receptacle.
The last time that the link broke down, I have to be honest, I was behind the camera, literally trying not to cry.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that today. I'm growing up.
Well, I really appreciate all the work you do with the tech, Lynn. And I know everyone else does, because it's sometimes it's a little bit, you know, the antithesis of what we're doing with the light body work and the energy work, because it's, you know, it's like this digital reality, and it's all the tech and computers and all these things, which I use, I have fun sometimes with, but it's certainly not the emphasis of what I'm developing.
I do think it's interesting that the times that I'm the most relaxed and aligned before we start a session is often when there's problems with the technology.
Yeah. Interesting, you know.
It's like I think I've really got it together and it's going to be really smooth, and it seems like that's when I'm the least aligned with actually these devices. So I'll report more on that as I learn about it.
Okay, well, we'll check back with you.
No other questions?
Okay, so the outer body expansion, we've done that just within recent sessions. And I'm going to do it again because it's so essential. And we'll see where it takes us, because the actual doing of it can be very similar, but where we go with it can be very different from time to time. And this is something that we can call an exercise. And when we start to recognize the different qualities that happen within this, we realize that it's a journey. It's like going on a trip, and it's frequency expansion. It's perceptual change, and we're moving energetically into different dimension where we have much more range of movement within the atmosphere. So what I'd like you to look for as we expand, and then, or we say make the outer body more permeable and then less permeable. You can say expansion and contraction, but I think permeable and less permeable is, it's more the way it is. And so quality changes. Notice quality changes, that as we go into each layer and we feel ourselves expanding, how does the physical body change? Because the way that we feel our body changes as we expand these layers, or can. And then this part where the energy body resides also has a quality change in how we feel it. A key thing to remember is that as we expand outward, that each one of these bodies also penetrating deeply within the space of the physical body. And this can be a missing link sometimes, that the etheric, emotional, and mental body penetrate into the physical body, into the cellular spaces, and into the cells themselves. So it really is like a complete web from the highest frequencies down into the densest layers of who we are. And we can also notice that the sensation of the room, the walls, the floor, and the ceiling also have quality changes. And a lot of times when we expand our frequency, we feel like we're actually penetrating, descending down through the floor, moving out beyond the walls and beyond the ceiling. And for me, this is actually what is happening. There's a part of us that is not contained by the molecular reality of the three-dimensional plane. Now, clearly, a large part of us is confined within that. But we also want to create a relationship and the ability to regulate that part of us that is not confined. And as we move into each frequency layer, to understand that the principles that govern the physical reality are shifting, they're changing, they're no longer applicable in that way. So it gives us tons of possibility, potential for discovery and for realizing the quality of how these new realities, paradigms, and dimensions are working as we move into them. It's like when we're in the mother's womb and then we're surrounded by the amniotic fluid and then contained within the shell of the mother's body. But then there's this whole universe that's outside of that. And we may remember as we go back, let's say that as we move forward and expand forward, that we also are moving back into that point and into the memory, not only of the womb, but even beyond the womb, pre-womb. And we can remember at a certain point that we were in that space, but there was part of us that could sense what was outside of that space, and it influenced us, it conditioned us. And some of us need to also deal with that part that conditioned and influenced us all the way back at that time and even before. So, interesting things to notice. So we'll start out with our deep parasympathetic breathing, where we breathe in through the nose, quietly, silently. Let the air go all the way to the back of the nose to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, filling up the pelvic, the belly, the chest, the upper chest. And then releasing, let the air flow back over the nose, back of the nose. And let the air come out of upper chest, abdomen, pelvic. And let's do a few more of those. Breathing in. And already the parasympathetic stimulation allows us to relax. Allows us to feel the subtle movements proprioceptively. And we feel the physical body. The weight, the density. You can feel the content of the abdomen, the lungs. And we can also feel the structure of the spine, sacrum, all the vertebrae, up to the cranium, bones in the arms and the legs and the rib cage, the muscle, the tissue, the weight, the form that we have. Now, through your experience and through the parasympathetic breathing, you may notice that the body has already shifted, becoming more expanded, less dense, lighter. Usually after you do this for a while, it happens quickly. Not always, but usually. And we can bring our attention to the etheric body, just a small distance from the skin surface. 2 to 3 inches, or a little bit more or less. And as you bring your attention to that layer, you may notice that there's a sensation between the etheric layer and the skin surface. And it creates a tingling, it creates a sensation. And two things, you feel like you're expanding out into that space, which makes the body feel less dense, lighter. But you also feel that the sensation at the skin surface penetrates deep into the skin and muscles. And if you stay with it all the way down into the bone structure, you can feel this energy of the etheric body penetrating deeply into the physical body. And the physical body expanding, becoming more permeable. And we can go out now into the emotional level. Maybe a foot, foot and a half, or more or less from the skin surface. And as we go into this layer, it actually is a world in and of itself. It's magnetic. We can move from great distance in this emotional layer. We feel ourselves expanding out into that layer. The front of the body, back, sides, above and below, we expand out. And you may notice sometimes the sensation like you do when you go up in an elevator. That's a proprioceptive sensation, expanding, going up, expanding out. And you're becoming more permeable. You may notice that your physical body now has merged into this larger space of the etheric and emotional body. Physical body becoming less dense, less restricted in its form, lighter. At the same time, as your attention shifts, the emotional body feels a little bit more dense, like a fluid or a gel. It's becoming more permeable. More frequencies of light can enter. Notice the shift. The emotional body also penetrates down into the physical form. It's a synthesis that causes expansion. You may notice color. You may notice some form, energy forms moving within that emotional space. And you can then move out into the mental body, the radiatory body. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 feet from the skin surface. And these distance calculations become less relevant the further you go into the higher frequency bodies. You can think of it as 5 or 6 or 10 feet, but in reality, It's a world within itself, expanding, solar. Notice the physical body giving way as the frequency center shifts, perception center shifts, and your body expands out. And there's this uplifting sensation again, the elevator. And you can feel a border above and below, sides, front, back, a border of the mental body. And this border, or membrane, it's actually a skin membrane, like the skin. This is like a placenta, within which our physical, emotional, and mental embryo gestates in the human lifetimes. And as you bring your attention to that border, you can, if you wish, let that border become less dense, more permeable. Let it become more permeable, if you like. And this opens us to input frequencies from the next dimension, the soul dimension. If you feel not ready, then you can just stay within. Don't become more permeable and just stay within the physical, etheric, emotional, mental. And usually when you allow this skin, the mental body, to become more permeable, there is a sudden rush of lifting of the elevator, expanding in all directions. And notice the feeling of the room that you're sitting in. The walls, the ceiling, the floor. And you start to understand that part of you functions outside the physical parameters. And you're learning how to regulate that, like a baby learns its boundaries in the physical world. Usually it's a very quiet, serene, silent space. You may see color, you may see images, you may see energy forms. You could stay here for minutes, 2, 5, 10, 20 minutes. You can go into this expansion in nature, in the woods, next to a stream, in power spots that you find. You can move into past or future environments, spaces, and condition them with higher frequency. So there's like rails for you to move on in different situations. You can always go to parasympathetic breathing. You could go to chakrabalancing, kundalini balancing, working with the soul star, reset of the vagus nerve. Once you're in this permeable, expanded state, you're very receptive to the regenerative effects of the energy system. Remember the sensation. You can awaken to this in the morning. You can slip into this as you go into your sleep. Now, in order to re-engage with the physical life, human life, we'll attach like our mental process to the border, the outer border, and become less dense. Coming down on the elevator. Feel that sensation as you become less permeable at the mental body, less permeable in the emotional body. And this part of the process you may resist, but it's important so that you can function without losing energy in the physical world. Become less permeable in the etheric layer. And feel your body coming back into its form. And feel your body regaining its weight as your perceptual center shifts back to the dense plane. Your weight, your form, your density, your structure. This is where your grounding takes place, and you re-enter. And take a deep breath. And when you breathe out, if you like, let your eyes open. And I like to open first without focus, continuing to feel the body, feel the room. And as we became more dense and less and more into our structure, you notice that there was like a separation between us and the room. And when we went the other way, there was a merging and this movement that we had beyond the room. So it's just interesting to notice those gradual quality changes, and this is what gives us the ability to regulate, to modify, and to create permeability levels that are appropriate for different situations that we're in. Very permeable for the light body activation, and much less permeable, more dense for physical life interactions, blood, family interactions. So then coming back to clear focus, did anybody have anything to share?
Well, they're all just coming out of it, so we'll see.
If you have anything to contribute, anything that you'd like to say, or questions of other sorts. This type of simple, basic, light body, well, we'll call it an exercise, but as you can see, it's a whole journey. This is something that you can have as your go-to, your default. If you're not sure, you just want to continue to develop and exercise, like taking a run, like going for a swim, walking in the woods. This is one of your default exercises that you can use. And no matter how advanced you go into the chakras, the kundalini, the light body vehicle, this will never be obsolete. This will always be a core, fundamental strengthening procedure you can do, journey that you can do. Well, it seems like everybody is good for the day.
Oh, we have somebody who wrote something.
Oh, okay. We did have someone write something.
Tichelle just wrote, "Thank you for bringing that up. As I came back into the body, I felt a distinguishment between me and the room. I felt my hands warm up. I was able to feel a sense of freedom and aliveness."
Great. Quality change as we go into each body, an expansion layer, and then as we come back. There are different quality changes. And as we notice those, then we become more able to regulate this whole emerging system that we have, this evolutionary change that many of us, all of us, are going through.
Dawn just wrote, "I've been to space, traveling with no feeling of restriction, limitless, ageless, timeless. I'm feeling joy."
Okay, so welcome back, cosmonaut.
And she had written earlier that challenges can propel us into alignment and greater presence, fearless almost. Because she really recently has been through a tremendous challenge, and she had emailed me earlier last week saying that, yeah, part of it has made her fearless.
How we choose to perceive our challenges is an essential part of our journey.
Christine Nelson said, do you mean as we walk or run we can use this, or before or after? How would you use this kind of thing in actual physical action?
Well, you could. However, the way what I meant to say is that it's like doing something. So sometimes we have a feeling, I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to walk in the woods. I'm going to do yoga postures. Many things. I'm going to play the piano. This is something you say, well, I'm going to go on a journey with the outer body, with visiting my facility within the emotional plane, within the mental plane, and then beyond into the soul plane. However, I do, and it is something that takes some time and development, is go into these states while I'm walking. However, I wouldn't do it usually in the shopping mall. I stay more dense and contained. I want to have my permeability at a lesser level. Because that's an environment like an airport where you have a lot of flying emotions and psychic energies, and I don't necessarily want to absorb those, so I stay more dense. It's like discernment, like taste, the evolution of taste. However, I look at it also as I would, I'm going to sit down and play the piano, or I'm going to go for a run. Many of the things that I do to enjoy, to experience life, this has a similarity. So the answer is both. Thanks for the question, and good to hear from you, Christine.
Zoe wrote, I'm continually inspired by how the restricted fascial energy patterns let go and leave my body. When they do, I become aware of all the information about that time and event to incredible accuracy. And Tichelle's saying she's also experienced that. So have I, Zoe.
And
yeah.
Herman, so that's a great comment, by the way. And is that written in the on the stream?
In the live chat.
Okay, yeah. So it's good to look at that several times because that's an important process that we start to experience.
Herman said, the great thing about this light body work is it keeps me in connection with the physical world. The purpose is not to get lost in space. This time I was in contact with the trees in the garden.
Wow.
And the chakras were like a presence. They got informed just by noticing them.
Yeah. Usually we're interpreting all these things according to our conceptual mind, but when we let go of the conceptual mind and experience them as they are, how we experience them can be so different and give us so much more in terms of different ways of receiving information. Well, we're done for the day, and we're just going to go through the day taking this experience with us. We look forward to being with everyone and to hearing how you're experiencing this. And we certainly would love to hear any comments about what we talked about in the beginning and any experiences that you have with any of the materials. So until the next time, we're going to be off next week. And Lynn has another comment.
Well, I had a comment that we're going to be at the beach with our family next week at the ocean. And there's a chance we might do a spontaneous live stream on the beach in the morning, if Saul and I can find a quiet spot and if I can figure out to get the mics to work by then. So keep your eye out for an email. Make sure you're on our email list if you're not and you want to be informed.
Yeah, so this week was called Does the World Get You Down? Next week is Come to the Beach. If we do it. So if not, we'll return shortly after that when we get back. So have a great time till then. Enjoyed interacting with everyone, and best wishes till we see each other again.